Welcome to the Tribe of Testimonies. Here you will find conversations with faithful Native American members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sharing their stories and their love of the Savior. My name's Andrea Hales. I'm Navajo, and I'm glad that you've decided to come and join us today. Hi, everybody. Today, my guest is Stephanie Chadwick. I am really grateful that she reached out to me, and her name was given to me by one of her friends, and she lives in India, and so there's like a second or 1.5 second delay on some of the answers because of just the communication between us. So just realize that that's what that is. But I'm just grateful for her and for her testimony. She graduated from BYU right before I started. So I didn't know her, but we have friends in common, and that's kind of fun. And I really like this story that she tells at the end about her time with her mom. So I hope that you listen to that and are able to recognize perhaps similar tender mercies in your life. Anyway, so here's my guest. Her name's Stephanie, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. I am on the phone tonight. Well, my tonight, her tomorrow, with Stephanie Chadwick. Stephanie, would you introduce yourself in your tribal way as much as possible? If it's in your language, great. If it's not, that's fine. Not everybody speaks their language, and some languages are dead.
Sure, I can do that. It's Stephanie Chadwick in Shke. Ado the Nishlimiki Shihin Shle. Kitla Chini Bushish Chin. Kia Ani Dashache. Kuda Chini Dashanale. A Kut Ego the Nastan Shle. Peblo Pentaro Dent Nasha or Nahavishki's Dent Indian Dent Nasha. Shema Joanne Tavita Williams Aro Shaja John Chiquito Williams New Delhi, India to Ketahit. So what I said was, hello, my name is Stephanie Chadwick, and as Navajos, we have 4 clans. I'm Salt Clan, and I was born for the Red House Clan. My maternal grandfather's clan was Towering House, and my paternal grandfather's was Bitterwater. And this is how I'm a Navajo woman, and I'm originally from Pueblo Pintado, New Mexico. My mother was Joanne Toledo, and my father was John Chiquito, and we live in New Delhi, India.
Yeah, so that's why I say my today and her tomorrow. She's 12.5 hours difference from me, so that's crazy. So I'm really grateful that we could hook up together on this podcast. Stephanie,
yes.
Would you share something that you love about your heritage? It could be a celebration, a ceremony, a way of life, a story, pretty much anything, especially though as it relates to the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Sure, I can do that. We live abroad a large amount of in the last 10 plus years. Due to my husband's job, we move around a lot, and we have 3 daughters. But one of the things that, since we move around a lot, and since my children aren't as exposed to all the culture or heritage that, we would prefer them to be, we try to do things here in our home to expose them, but also we have the chance every year, once a year. I wish it was more than that, but we return back to the U.S. every year during the summers, and we make the most of that time when we're home. And home is in Pueblo Pintado, but more so now in Farmington since my mother passed right before we moved here. But especially when my daughters were younger, um, we always made it a point to go back to where I grew up from, and also for them to make that connection with their masana and my brother, and also my mother comes from a very large family, and so to be exposed to their aunts and uncles and cousins and just spending time out there where I grew up. Um, and it's really, I think that's one of the important things to them is that's where they call home now because we spent so much time focusing on that and the way of life at home. They feel that connection, and they call New Mexico home. Um, my father came from a smaller family, but we still maintain ties with both sides of the family. But um, we do a lot of things when we're home, and we've probably been to every fair possible. During the summer, we just hit them up. And we make sure we know where they are, and we enjoy doing those things, but we enjoy, spending time with our relatives and doing those things, cooking outside, butchering if we, have that chance. Um, my daughters, if it so happens that we're home when there's, a kinalda or a set ceremony, we like to make sure that we're there to help out so the girls can be exposed. And also just exposing them to issues at home and talking about them. And my oldest, COVID I guess there's been some benefits to COVID, right? And so one of them is that my oldest took some classes through Diné College and Navajo Technical University online, helping her. She took a Navajo class, and it's been fun and great to be able to hear her speaking, speaking and learning the language, and then just some other talking about issues at home. But with all of that, I think it's just really the small things that make those connections too. Like I laugh because some of their fondest memories, as you get older, you think, I grew up in such a small place and there wasn't a lot happening. You know what I mean? And I did grow up in a very small place, but when I go home, it's home, and I'm happy to be home. And some of my girls' fun memories, especially when they were younger, where they enjoyed going to the laundromat to wash clothes with their mudson, and when they were younger, that was just part of the fun for them. I'm sure that their grandma bought them treats and everything. That was part of more of the fun, but
yeah,
they remember that. They remember that, or just going for walks down to the arroyo or the wash, and just spending time down there and talking with their grandmother, making bread with her, and just having fun together. And what's the other funniest things is my one of my other daughters said that she couldn't wait to go home to get food at Basha's. It's just things like that. It's just things like that I think I really cherish about our culture. And I think that and some of the other things that we've just tried to do too is we've learned how to do some silversmith work, and there's a few of us that continue to try and keep it up. We're still learning, but we're still trying. And often, since we often are in places where there aren't a lot of people that are Native American, we also are asked often to teach and raise awareness, and so we try to do that too. It's uh, it's a privilege to be able to teach others about our culture, and that we're living in a thriving people. But um, but I guess as it ties into the gospel, I mean it's meaningful to me because we spend so much time away from our family, and it's wonderful to me. And the older I get, because time is short, and I just think that we have such a small window to enjoy time with our family that we really try to enjoy it, and with those whom we care about. And so that's what makes family life fulfilling for us. And I look forward, to all the time that we have when we go home during the summers. And I, it means a lot that um, my grandparents had a family of 11, well, 12. One of their children passed away when he was an infant. But they really were hardworking and good people, and they were members of the church. And I remember that my parents taking them to the Mesa Temple. Back when we all had to go to the Mesa Temple to get your endowments. But I remember my parents translating the endowment ceremony for them into Navajo when they were sealed. And my grandmother didn't go to school at all, and like many didn't back then. And my grandfather had, I think, a third grade education, but my grandmother was asked to stay home and herd the sheep, and her siblings didn't go to school, or excuse me, her siblings did go to school, and she always regretted it, but she would always say, if she had gone to school, she would have outdone everyone else. But I think it's interesting, though, that my grandmother's children, all of them graduated from high school, and several of them went to university and went on to receive either a bachelor's or a master's degree. And so my mother was the oldest of all her siblings, and I knew that was important to her too, receiving a good education, and also learning and making a honest, good living for herself. And so I think, like I said, family is really important to me. My mother was one of a great example for me. She went on a mission, the Southwest Indian Mission, and she was the one who really was first in contact with the church in our family. And she used to work for a trader family and was exposed to some members of the church this way in Farmington. But she always placed a lot of importance on her church membership. And, I grew up learning from her and from my son and my Che. And, my mother went to Fort Wingate, and the elders back where my grandparents were living were teaching my grandparents as well. But they were all baptized at the same time. And even though my grandparents, knew and grew up in the traditional ways, and as a child, I participated in different ceremonies, but the church was always the focus, it seemed like, in our family. And I think that's how my mother grew up, and some of my aunts and uncles. And I was around, my grandparents a lot as a child, but I know that the church was always really important to them. So that's I guess the family is what's really important about our culture to me, and also it's, the way that it ties in with the church, and that the fact that our ties are eternal is something that brings me great comfort and peace.
Yeah. I also like just the way you were describing the way that you've raised your girls is the way it seems like that our church leadership has encouraged us to make sure that we are raising our families in the gospel. Like I see the same parallel, like you're immersing them as much as possible and just making it part of the day to day, not like something separate from your day to day.
Right, right. Yeah, we just want them to be comfortable in it with who they are, and my oldest will be leaving this year, you know, going back to the States, and so, but I think she's ready. I think she's ready, to be on her own and experience life in the States.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you said that you went to university. You told me that you went to university. Tell us a little bit about that and your college achievements.
Sure. Well, my mother went to BYU, and that was that was always only the one place I wanted to go because she had gone there, and so that was the only place I applied, and that's where I received my undergraduate degree, and then I and I got a degree in youth leadership, and then I worked for a little while, and I decided that I should go back and get my master's degree, and I was attending University of New Mexico. I decided I would stay close to home because I spent so much time away because I was on the Indian placement program, and I was in Preston, Idaho, but I was on the Indian placement program for 9 years, and I wanted to spend as much time as possible, closer to home after I graduated from high school. And so anyways, I stayed close to home in New Mexico, and that first semester of my graduate work in Albuquerque, both of my grandparents ended up passing away. And so after that first semester, and also I just realized my program wasn't a really good fit for me, and so I decided that I needed to find a better fit. And I had met someone that, earlier that year who actually had just graduated from Harvard. It was a Navajo girl that had just received her master's, and I got to know her some, and she told me that, she said, have you ever thought about going to Harvard? And I told her, no way, I don't want to go there. And then it just had never crossed my mind, and it was never an aspiration of mine. And then, at that point, when I was considering going somewhere else, I thought, she did, say maybe I would be a good fit. Well, maybe I should look at it at least. Maybe it would be. So I did look at their programs, at what I wanted to do, and I found a program that was a great fit for what I wanted to do. And there's in the School of Education, there's a program called Risk and Prevention for Adolescents. And since my focus was on working with youth, my bachelor's degree was, I decided that was how I wanted to, what I wanted to study. And so I applied, and I applied another place, and I got in, and that was a big surprise to me. And I'm glad that I tried. I'm glad that I listened to her, because otherwise I probably would not have applied at all. And so I received my master's degree from there in education, and it's been a great benefit to me in working with youth, which has been turned out to be a big focus of mine. And, you know, I, told you the story about my grandmother and education. It's always been a big priority to me because my mother also stressed that. And, she talked about how she would always tell that story about my grandmother, regretting not having gone to school. And that always, you know, was something that I never, I've not forgotten that story at all and tell my girls that story. But um, it just seems like my life's journey has led to working with youth, and I worked with, I've worked as a director of Upward Bound programs, which is a program for first generation college students, and um, I would help high school students navigate, getting into college and what they needed to do to prepare, exposing them to college before they would go to college, so they would know what to do and the steps to take, that they would feel comfortable going when it came time. And that was a lot of what I did before I started. I had my first daughter, and then naturally from there, I work now, but I've had no work working with youth. But on the other side, almost all my callings have been in the church. Have been in young women, and I've been in young women in everywhere we've lived abroad, every place we've lived, and I'm currently in young women's now. So I just feel like that was the path I was supposed to lead, was to work with youth, teenagers.
So, how long did you work in Upward Bound, and where were you located when you were doing that?
Let's see. The first position was in Blanding, Utah, and it's not called College of Eastern Utah anymore. I know they've changed the name, but I worked there as the Upward Bound director for about 2 years, and I worked with high schools in that southeastern Utah area, but several schools on the reservation. I believe, let's see, Red Mesa, Arizona, Montezuma Creek, the high school there, Whitehorse, Blanding, and then we also worked with Navajo Mountain. I love driving out to that place, and then places above Blanding like Monticello and Moab. But I worked with a lot of Navajo high school students whom I still keep in touch with to this day. Now a lot of them have finished university, or they have children. They're making a living, and it's fun to see how they've progressed and the things that they've done. And I love keeping in touch with many of them. And then I worked also for Upward Bound at the University of Northern Colorado. And then also we lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma when my husband and I were first married, and I worked at Rogers State, which is in Claremore, Oklahoma. And there were some Native Americans in that Upward Bound too, from Oklahoma, and that was an education for me, being exposed to natives in Oklahoma, because it's quite different than what we're used to in the Southwest. But I learned a lot from all the Native American Native Americans in Oklahoma, and just there were a lot of powwows, and there were just so many things culturally that I was exposed to on that side, which I'd never been to, and I enjoyed that when we lived in Oklahoma.
Do you feel like you were able to not just influence these kids to get an education, but were you able to influence them with other life, I guess, life skills or life lessons, or even like to help them know their worth as a child of God?
I mean, I try to emulate that, in all the things that I've done in my work. And of course, as a member of the church, I've I've tried to do that in my work and to be a good example for them. And I think, through it all, you know, any one of them, could go, I'm sure, to get a higher education. I think it's just a lot of it was just showing them they can have the confidence. Because I mean, I'm just me, I'm not, this super special, person. It's just that I think most of all, I wanted them to see that they're capable of doing whatever they wanted, and yes, and that they are children of God. And a lot of times, what it would come down to is, sometimes they would have issues at home. Almost always, almost in all of the different uh, universities that I worked at, it always came down to that, or I would have to talk to some of them because things were happening at home, or they had some personal issues, and always I would try to let them know that they were important, that they were very capable of achieving, things that they wanted to. And sometimes it just took a little guidance, or just letting them know that someone cared about them, and just taking that time to be aware of them, um, and letting them know that they had the abilities, and just, staying on track and making sure that they were taken care of. And that's what I've tried to do, with them, and with all the different youth that I've worked with. But yeah, yeah, it's a I've really, it's something that's really dear to me, though, working with the youth.
I can only imagine that you've made a difference in a lot of people's lives. Especially, you just said that you've maintained contact with quite a few of them, and I love that for you. I'm glad that that's happened.
Yeah, it's been special, because when I see, I this last week I saw an article written by one of my former students, and that was, to see, when they were 16 or 17, and they had no idea what they were capable of, and now they, have a major, have an article being published that many people are reading. I mean, haven't really had anything to do with that, but it's just fulfilling to see them thriving.
So you are in India right now. You've traveled a lot. You've lived a lot of places. Do you want to tell us about that and how that's happened? And if that's affected your testimony at all?
Sure. So, um, my husband works for the State Department, and we get assigned different places to live every 2 to 3 years. And so, before, he used to work in oil and gas, but I guess our journey has taken us to really different places through all those years. And we've lived in Central Africa, in Gabon, Port Gentil, Gabon, and then we've lived in also in with as he switched jobs, we've lived in Pretoria, South Africa, and then Warsaw, Poland, and then currently here in India. I think um, some of the biggest, blessings of living abroad is just seeing things up close and personal in history, things that we read about and actually seeing them and experiencing them is wonderful. Like living history and learning about different people and the cultures, tasting different foods. But I think, it's really learning about the people, which I enjoy the most. That's usually, some of the best memories is we, make friends wherever we go, and there are people that are dear to us. Um, and it's not a normal normal way of life, and I think sometimes we take it for granted, or I take it for granted, but I wouldn't trade it at all. But some of the other blessings are that our family is really close. Um, we move every 2 to 3 years, and we just have each other for those first few weeks until we meet others and we make new friends, and it's made my daughters really close. They're all about 2.5 years apart, but they're very close, you know, with each other, and all the experiences have brought us together. Um, I experiencing the church in each location has been different, and the members, and the church is relatively young in some areas, and the church has been longer in some. But I learned so much from the members in each place that I've been. you know, I I guess I've always been excuse me, I've always been a little bit sensitive because I grew up in the Indian placement program, and I always kind of felt like I was sort of this bridge between what I grew up in my culture, and then I was exposed to the Caucasian world, and I feel like I've always been sort of a bridge. And then I go abroad, I come abroad, and I'm sort of this bridge, between the way of life in the States and then the way of life, it is here. And so I, I'm always really sensitive to the members when we go to a new place because they are the ones that know the way of life here. They're the ones that know the people. And so if I get, called into leadership, I want them to know that I I want to know what they think and what they feel, because they're the ones that know what this, what the people are like and the church is like. Um, and I the first place we lived in Central Africa in Gabon, the church wasn't recognized there, and it made us, which made us the only members in that city at that time. And our daughters were, let's see, 2 and 4. So when we had to get permission from the area authorities to have sacrament in our home and church. So when we had church, uh, it was very short because we had a 2 and a 4-year-old, and we'd have church. And what it really ended up happening was we would take our leftovers we would walk around the zoo, which was near our home, and we would take our leftovers to the gorilla. That was the ending to church. But that was fun. um, but it was difficult too, because we also learned how much some of the reasons why we have church as a congregation is important. So we missed having a church family, even just if there had been 1 or 2 other families. But that experience definitely changed me in some ways, because after that, I tried not to take church for granted again after that. And whenever we'd go on vacation away from Gabon, we'd always try and make sure wherever we went, we attended church or we went to the temple. And I think that's one thing that, I think there are definitely some benefits of being part of a congregation, even, a branch. And I've, at home, we have had a small branch for a long time, but you see what the benefits are of, having one another and being able to help in the work, and how vital it is that we work together, for a common cause. And so those are some of the things that have I've learned, or that have helped my testimony, all those experiences.
That makes me think of Elder Oaks's last talk in October, Why the Church. All the things you just talked about, like that it's, well, of course, it's a feeding of your soul, but it's also a feeding of your just having strength from having more people around you. So I wonder how
Yeah,
many people have ever experienced anything like that, because I haven't.
yeah, I don't know. I haven't met anyone yet, but it was hard. It was hard. I didn't think it would, you know, thinking to back then, I thought, oh, this is gonna be great, we'll have all these experiences, but it got difficult. There were some points where it was very difficult.
How do you think your children have been affected by not always having a full congregation to worship with?
I think it's made them take a look at why they believe, um, and why they're doing, what they're doing. Why am I, doing all the small things that we do as members of the church? Why am I reading my scriptures? Why am I attending my meetings and so forth? Even if, for them, sometimes it may mean, okay, I probably have to take the lead again because they're not sure, you know, others are not sure how to run an auxiliary, or, they are not sure how to do their calling. Or young women's is, I'm probably the one that's going to have to run young women's again. Things like that. I think it's made them take a hard look at why they do those things and why they believe. Because a lot of times they're the ones, they're the ones, or we might be the ones leading and teaching. And sometimes, it's taken me a while to maybe come to terms with this, and sometimes we may end up thinking, oh man, I'm doing so much, but really I think it's really important to not feel that way, because some people are just learning how to be members of the church, and if I myself don't take the time to help people learn, it I could be losing out on those blessings, and also not helping someone. I just don't want to not do that. So I think I think it's really giving them and all of us a look at, why am I doing these things as a member of the church, and I know why I'm doing those things, because I want to return to my heavenly Father, and I want to help others progress too, hopefully, and not, and then in that helping others, then I myself am helping myself to progress and hopefully become a better person.
One of my dad's favorite questions that I ask is there a tender mercy that you have experienced that's not too sacred that you might be able to share with us, just to witness that our Heavenly Father is aware of you, Stephanie?
Let's see. Well, I didn't expect that question. I think right off the top of my head, the one uh, thing that I could share is that when 3 years ago, my husband was assigned to go to Baghdad, and that assignment involves is unaccompanied, meaning that me and our daughters couldn't go with him, and so we had wanted to do this previously, and anyhow, it didn't work out, but it worked out this year, 3 years ago, and our reasoning for it was for us to spend time with my mother, who was getting older, and the girls were at a good age. You know, we want them to remember all their fond memories with her, and the time they had with her. So we spent that year in Farmington with her, and little did we know that that was the last year that she would be with us. And long story short, we were supposed to move to India in very early August, and my mother ended up getting ovarian cancer that summer. And as things progressed, and I took care of her in the home, and my brother would, go to work and would come home and, come back in the evenings, and then he would take care of her in the evenings, and we'd just switch off. But during that time, as we just came together, my brother and I, and helping my mother. But after she found out, they thought, she had spent time in the hospital. They thought that she would pass quite quickly, and we had gathered the family, and they had said their goodbyes. And she ended up living 2 more months, and we thought that my husband and the girls would come back earlier than me, and I would stay back to take care of her. But during this exact same time, too, our visas weren't being approved. Our visas to travel to India weren't being approved, and they kept getting pushed back. And anyhow, my mother ended up passing away. So our visas got approved just 1 or 2 days before she passed. And, I can't, help but think, excuse me, that the Lord was aware. And he, sorry, he was aware that she passed and everything worked out. She passed, and the visas were approved, and she passed just 1 or 2 days later, and we were able to all be together, as a family, at her funeral, and we didn't have to split up, and that we were all there to support her and fulfill her wishes, in her services, and carry out all those wishes that she had together. And then just, about a week later, then we left and then came to India. And I know that the Lord was aware of that. And the fact that, we moved abroad, we moved so much, and that year we got to spend with her. It would have been more difficult, to to have been, trying to go back and forth if I'd been living, somewhere abroad. But the fact that I was there that whole year and that I could help take care of her and we could all be there, as she passed on and into the next phase of life, I know that the Lord was involved.
Totally. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing something so tender. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
I have one final question for you. What does it mean to you to know that you belong that you belong to the tribe of Israel?
I think I can't help it. I know Larry Eckhart talks about this too, about the title page, of the Book of Mormon and how it says it was written to the Lamanites who were a remnant of the house of Israel. And that, what it means to me is that, the Lord is aware of me, of us, that I'm a part of that remnant of the house of Israel, and so are my children, my parents, my grandparents. It gives it more meaning to me, and also shows, just like the story I just shared, how very aware that our Savior is of us and our people, and just the fact that it must mean a lot if it's written on the title page, and it just reminds me too of what in the past, what wonderful things the Lord has done for us as people, and I just knowing that I'm a member of the tribe of Israel, I just want to show that having made covenants with the Lord, I just want to show him that that I know that he's there for me and that he's aware of me and our people, and that the Lord has always been with us. And so I just am reminded of how I want to try and focus on him in my life, and as I try to do that through my life, it's hard to believe now that I'm reaching the middle peak of life, that I see how, as I've included the Lord in my life, I've felt his influence and blessings. And it gives me great strength and hope. And it also, above all, causes me to feel humble because of the responsibility placed upon us to help our brothers and sisters realize this too. And that, if we know of our brothers and sisters who aren't there, to help them to come back. But that's what it means to me.
Thank you. I love that answer.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. And
You're welcome.
I hope you have a great day, Stephanie. Okay, guys, I promise my life is not full of drama and trauma, but today was some trauma today. And gratefully my husband is the one who took care of it, but it still affected me. And as I was standing in the bathroom getting ready for the day, I just kept trying to say a prayer in my head, in my heart, to help me know what to do, what to say, how to react, if I should anything of those. Anyway, but I got this note in a friend text chat, a group chat, just the other day, and I kept thinking about this. I don't know who wrote it. It doesn't say who wrote it. But it says, there was a moment when Moses had asked God what his name is. God was gracious enough to answer, and the name he gave is recorded in the original Hebrew as as YHWH. Over time, we've arbitrarily added an A and an E in there to get Yahweh, presumably because we have a preference for vowels. But scholars and rabbis have noted that the letters YHWH represent breathing sounds or aspirated consonants. When pronounced without intervening vowels, it actually sounds like breathing. YHs, WHs, or so a baby's first cry, his first breath speaks the name of God. A deep sigh calls his name, or a groan or gasp that is too heavy for mere words. Even an atheist would speak his name unaware that their very breath is giving constant acknowledgement to God. Likewise, a person leaves this earth with their last breath, when God's name is no longer filling their lungs. So when I can't utter anything else, is my cry calling out his name? Being alive means I speak his name constantly. Is it heard the loudest when I'm the quietest? In sadness, we breathe heavy sighs. In joy, our lungs feel almost like they will burst. In fear, we hold our breath and have to be told to breathe slowly to help us calm down. When we're about to do something hard, we take a deep breath to find our courage. When I think about it, breathing is giving him praise. Even in the hardest moments, this is so beautiful and fills me with emotion every time I grasp the thought. God chose to give himself a name that we can't help but speak every moment we're alive. All of us, always, everywhere, waking, sleeping, breathing, with the name of God on our lips. And then it has a reference, Psalm 156. So like I said, as I was standing there, I was just paying attention to my breathing and trying to make my thoughts and my heart and my breathing all have meaning and directed towards him, to God. And I've calmed down and I've had a good day, but I am still thinking about that. I'm still thinking about him, about God, and how I want his name to be on my lips instead of angry words or even sad words. Anyway, I don't know if that's going to make any difference for any of you, but that was what was on my mind today. And I hope you have a super wonderful, awesome day. Tribe of Testimonies is not affiliated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The music is a traditional hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, arranged and performed by Kyle Forsyth. If you know someone who might be interested in being a guest, please reach out to me at tribeoftestimonies@gmail.com.